you tried the Arc browser at all?
On Mac? Yeah, I actually have.
Just been hearing a lot of hype about it.
I tried it I don't know, some point last year. It was a pain in the ass to get all my stuff moved over. It didn't all just import from Firefox. Mm-hmm. Apparently, if I was on Chrome, it would have been a one-click thing. But
so you didn't stick with it?
I did not. No.
It sounds cool what they're doing in theory, in terms of the actual the search aspect of it, because we've talked about how borderline unusable Google has become.
Yeah.
Not unusable, but just really.
No, it kind of is.
It is deteriorating, and I like the fact that we've also talked about the problems with AI, but I like the fact that when you do look something up on here, they, I guess, cite their sources, mm-hmm. right? They call it keeping the AI in check because it lies a lot. So they make sure that the AI cites all the sources that it pulls from.
So I used it before they had search, their own search, and before they did this AI thing. I heard about the AI thing because they announced some kind of AI thing last week, right? Or is it the week before? Something recent.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're doing an AI thing. Okay, whatever. So yeah, I used it way before all of that. Whenever it was just a different take on a browser, which just meant that everything was over on the side instead of up top.
Oh, okay. Because it sounds like their ambitions are a little bit larger now in terms of what they want a web browser to be.
Sure, but I also think it's they're going to need a way to make money because as of right now, I don't think they have any kind of way to make money. Mm-hmm. Because it's a free product. They're not currently selling advertising, I don't think. So I guess if you have your own search engine, that is then the vehicle for monetization. I'm not sure. I don't really know what their whole end game is.
And you think monetizing their search engine would just compromise it?
It eventually turns it back into Google.
Right.
If you read about because I do read about how these search engines are now just doomed to recursive failure. And so if you read the paper, this is now the famous quote that gets circulated around now about what was it, Sergey, whatever his name, and then the other Google guy, the paper that they wrote that was sort of the thesis of Google was they said that advertising would basically ruin it and taint the results. It's at odds with organic search. Mm-hmm. And then we look and see what happens. And now we have just AI thrown into the mix, just churning out. It's not AI search. It's AI, quote unquote, creation that is just chumming the waters of Drek. So what I did was I stopped using Google. I stopped using DuckDuckGo because DuckDuckGo was facing the same issues as Google is. They're all basically doing the exact same thing. I switched to Kagi.
Okay, never heard of it.
Right. And so they're not supported by advertised search. It's a subscription search. So you got to pay to use it, which sounds stupid to pay for a search engine until you try it. And then you realize that the results are way better than what you've been getting for the last few years. And you're actually finding shit that you need.
Interesting.
And so then it's as somebody that sits at a computer all day looking shit up, I was yeah, I'll pay $100 a year.
It's like a Netflix. That. Well, no, it's not even a Netflix because Netflix is $20 a month now. But it's any other subscription service. It's in that ballpark.
Yeah. For me, this is Google Drive storage or something.
Sure.
Just cost of doing business or whatever. It's it has you can do I think it's 100 free searches a week or whatever through them. And this is obviously not an ad. They're not paying me or anything. I wish. But I quickly burned through that in a couple days just because of how much shit I search. Mm-hmm. And so, and I was getting good quality results just because they're not elevating the paid for shit. They're not elevating the shopping links. They're not elevating the SEO AI spam. And of course, they're also a tech company. They have some kind of GPT bullshit, but it's not integrated into the search. It's a separate product that you could pay for access to. And so I have no interest in that, so I'm not paying for that. I'm just paying access to this really good search engine.
That's cool. What is it supported on? Is it just a desktop thing?
Yeah, like you basically like just go into your browser and tell it what default search you want, and then you got to put in the URL, and then you'll go to, like, you know how you used to have to type in google.com?
Yes.
And it would bring you to the page?
Yes.
And so you'll go there, and then you sign in with your account that you paid through, and then there you go. You're all set. And it works on mobile too. You do the same exact thing on mobile.
Huh.
So, and then that way it works in whatever browser you use anyway. So yeah, you're also not locked in to any of that shit. So I've been pretty happy with it so far. And, you know, I mean, like maybe the other search engines have turned it around in the last couple months, but I sincerely doubt it. I can only imagine it's gotten worse. But because like I think I mentioned this before, I found that search engine that was pulling, like specifically looking for sites that were like using outdated HTML and were using were basically old on purpose. Mm-hmm. So it uses that search engine as just one of its databases, for example, just as a combined sort of effort in addition to whatever algorithm they got going on, just as a way to sort of like deprioritize the gunk that is plaguing all the other search engines. So
okay, so I started off asking about an AI related thing, and it turns out the real solution is pretty much the opposite.
I mean, I think it is, right? Because my idea of using the internet, and I guess it's just the way that we grew up on it, and at least the way I grew up on it, was that you would sit down at the computer and you wanted to find out something. You wanted to sort of figure that out on your own. I didn't necessarily want to be spoon-fed the answer. I wanted to find out something and maybe discover something more about whatever the fuck. And if you have an AI do that, even if it cites its sources and even if it is completely correct and it just spits an answer out at you, you might just like get conditioned to the convenience of that you're just satisfied with that, and then you're done. You got your answer. You're fine.
Yeah.
Maybe that's too cynical.
Well, it's something that they're featuring as a perk, right? Not have like taking away any sort of basically any obstacles to getting that answer. Like you don't have to do any of it on your own. Right.
But
but then you're also just taking what you're given at face value. Then we've moved away from the idea of, you know, surfing the World Wide Web or sort of like exploring and seeing what the hell was out there, finding some shit, you know? Now it's just get the solution as frictionless and as quickly and in as few steps as possible. And also don't leave whatever our service is. That too, yeah. So take Google. So Google's AI is going to give you the answer. Don't click on any of these other websites because Google's going to give you the answer. Right, because originally Google was just the place you went to go somewhere else. Right. But that's now they're keeping you there. Yeah. And so now they're just Bing's doing the same fucking thing. GPT, Bing is just using GPT. It's all the same shit, but like all these different little walled gardens are just trying to design to keep you in their own shit. So you're dependent on whatever their shit is. Because that's the only way they're going to see any kind of return on this. Because I was talking to my dad about this a few weeks ago. I was like, spending all of this money on AI and what is essentially just prettied up versions of Siri and Alexa. Siri and Alexa that can construct sentences, like can construct answers that more accurately resemble sentences. That's how I'll say that. But that it's the same principle. You're asking it a question and it's spitting back out an answer. And that's still the exact same thing that we've had since, I don't know, how long have those stupid AI assistants been around? Yeah, and the pitch for ARC specifically started to lose me when they said that their AI can think. Yeah, see, that's all horseshit. It's nonsense. Yeah, it is. It's like an illusion, basically. Yeah, like they didn't. Whenever I last used it, they didn't work out the fact that you would need the same extensions for your different profiles. So, like one of their big selling points for the browser was the fact that you would have like
they didn't necessarily call them profiles, but that's basically what they were. Like different profiles for different modes of using the web. So you could have an at-home one, a work one, a play one, or whatever the hell, you wanted. They would be tailored for whatever you would need. So like I started making one. Here's my podcast. Here's all the different usual tabs I would use whenever I'm researching the podcast or editing the podcast, all this kinds of different stuff. And so then here's the extent, like I was, setting up and making all my, extensions and everything that I would need for my browser. And then whenever I wanted to do the one for my like publishing profile, I had to set up all of that again. I was like, well, this sucks. Like I just did all that. The browser should have access to those extensions. Mm-hmm. And yeah, of course, it was sort of like a permissions issue because you wouldn't necessarily use all the exact same extensions you would for your work that you would for your home, and different accounts. But like at the same time, I should be in control of that. And I wasn't. I just had to keep doing the same exact thing over and over again, just trying to set up a workflow. And it was like, well, I can just go back to Firefox where I have all this set up anyway. And like the only real benefit was, I don't know, like finger swipes on MacBook to like change the profiles. Like that was really kind of the only upside at the time for me.
Yeah.
And it looked nice, And for like a second, it was nice to use something that didn't resemble the browsers that we've been using for, I guess since old Firefox before Chrome stole all that shit. So I don't know. I sort of like that there's more competition in that space, but at the same time, they are just using Chromium, which I don't like because that's another issue. Is the fact that basically every browser is based on Chromium, and so Google has control over it anyway. Because like there's basically 3 web browser standards, and Chromium is like 90% of the market share, mm-hmm. which sucks. So like if Google decides that they want to adopt like a web standard that the other like Mozilla and Apple, who makes WebKit for Safari, like they don't agree with. Well, it's kind of your shit out of luck because we have 90% market share and we could just sort of blunt force the way through just because of sheer, user adoptability. But it's also a lot easier because all of those browser extensions from Chrome just work on all Chromium browsers for the most part. So it sucks, but like it is a fucking monopoly. But it's also why I use Firefox, mm-hmm. just to sort of rebel in a tiny way. However you can. But anyway.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to be part of the show.
But no, it was good. It was good. Hey, what's up? It's DeadEndRoad Show, episode 98. It's Bill and Ian just hanging out on a Tuesday night. It's Tuesday, right?
You made me think there for a second.
Yeah. I don't know anymore. We got some interesting stuff. I won't necessarily say fun, but we got some interesting stuff tonight.
Also 98, huh?
I know. That's weird.
Huh.
Yeah, I know. I know. I got some more publishing stuff to talk about tonight. And I don't have a sound drop for this because the other one was too depressing. But then I couldn't think of anything else, so we don't have a sound drop for this segment. Segment I like to call Shelved. So I messaged you about this a couple weeks ago. I want to talk about the Hugo Awards sort of fiasco that's gone on, and that is still basically not resolved. And it might not, like, we might not get an answer to it, which is nuts. So what basically happened is the Hugo Awards for science fiction and fantasy were held in 2023 in Chengdu, China in October. And the Hugo Awards were known as very prestigious. You know, you would see if an author won, you know, they would put in their bio, Hugo Award winning author. It was a big deal, right?
Is it fantasy, sci-fi, that sort of thing?
Fantasy, sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd have to look and see how long it's been going on, but it's a very long time. Like, we're talking like Asimov days, you know, like, yeah, since 1953. So like pretty much since the start of like popular science fiction novels at the very least, at least in the West, you know what I mean? So this time around, they were being held in Chengdu, China back in October of last year. And usually the way this goes is the awards happen, and then not too long after that, in an act of transparency, the I guess how would you describe the body that puts on the Hugo Awards, Worldcon, releases the tabulations of the voting for the awards. This time, they didn't do that until January of 2024. And so that on its own was already weird. What else was weird is that they just decided to make a bunch of the finalists or would-be finalists for different awards invalid. And they did not give any explanation. And so the major ones were R.F. Kuang's Babel, which won some other SF awards. And it was sort of expected to be like, if not winning a Hugo, at the very least being in the final sort of round. There was an episode of The Sandman that was up for an award that was also deemed invalid. And then I believe there was a fan writer that was also, I want to get the name. I have too many tabs. See, if I was using ARC, I might have been able to.
It's true.
Iron Widow from Ziran J. Zhao, who we might remember from our last time we did this segment, I think. And then there was one other major one. Fan writer Paul Weimer.
Now, what is a fan writer? Is that fan fiction?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure if it's fan fiction or if they like cover sort of like the industry in that kind of sense. According to his Twitter page, has a Nerds of a Feather Flock Together zine, Hugo award-winning fanzine covering fantasy, science fiction, video games, comics. So that's what I would imagine. Yeah, so like covering the industry sort of thing.
I see.
Is what I mean. What they mean by fan writer. Because I still don't think mainstream writing is at that point where they like are acknowledging fan fiction in that sense.
Yeah.
But you know how it is. So those, I think, if those are not all of the sort of invalid nominees, those were the major ones. And so none of them were given. First of all, none of them knew that they were marked as invalid until the sort of these voting tabulations came out. And then none of them were given any reason why their work was invalidated at all. And there was no sort of like additional announcement that these works were invalidated. It was just sort of included in like this 36-page long PDF of the voting results that I honestly had the damnedest of time even trying to process. It was just numbers, graphs, charts. I could not wrap my head around it. I was looking to other people that would sort of comb through it and sort of give conclusions. So there was lots of inconsistencies in the numbers. The numbers didn't add up. Just lots of strangeness. And these are in the numbers that they released. And again, these had nothing to do with why these writers were just invalidated at all. And so this obviously caused an uproar. R.F. Kuang issued a statement on the 22nd of January, and this was over on her Blue Sky page. And she said, I initially planned to say nothing about Babel's inexplicable disqualification from the Hugo Awards, but I believe that these cases thrive on ambiguities, the lingering question marks, the answers that aren't answers. I wish to clarify that no reason for Babel's ineligibility was given to me or my team. I did not decline a nomination, as no nomination was offered, until one is provided that explains why the book was eligible for the Nebula and Locus Awards, which it won, and not the Hugos. I assume this was a matter of undesirability rather than ineligibility. Excluding, quote, undesirable work is not only embarrassing for all involved parties, but renders the entire process and organization illegitimate. Pity. That's all from me. I have books to write. And yeah, that has been all from her. That has been her only statement on the matter. Neil Gaiman, who his one episode of the Sandman Netflix series was disqualified, has not been happy about this. He's been actively looking for answers publicly. He has unfortunately not gotten any.
And he's so high profile.
Yeah.
Not even just within the literary community, but in pop culture.
Yeah.
So he's probably the most famous person who could have been nominated for one of these currently. Right.
In this sort of SF bubble. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so it's weird, especially because the Hugos are known as like the transparent book award because they release the votes.
The 30-page PDFs.
Yeah, that stupid people like me have a hard time understanding. But also maybe they're hard to understand because they're fucked up. But yeah, they're seen as like, this is transparent. This is democratic. This is the way that book awards should be done, because the way that literally anybody can become eligible for voting in the Hugo Awards is you pay a membership fee of like $50, and then you are eligible to vote. Essentially, you are part of the like the WorldCon sort of voting body, and you are eligible to vote, and that's basically it. So that means that basically fans are part of the process. When the barrier to entry is that low, like this is not some secretive, jury, like unknown jury in a cloaked room, like deciding the awards. This is not the Academy even, whenever something like sort of off happens like this, this is more than sort of off, but whenever something off happens, you're going to get a tidal wave of people being like, well, what the fuck? What did I vote for? And then you also just have a bunch of authors you have authors that are disqualified for unknown reasons, unhappy. You have their friends that are unhappy. You have the winners that are unhappy because they're like, well, I don't feel like I really won this, Yeah,
it feels tainted.
Yeah. And winners have come out and said as much. They're like, I don't feel like I won. How could I say that I won when this process has been that screwed up and that there no reason for these disqualifications? They should have been able to proceed through. And so there were already issues with the decision to hold the 2023 awards in Chengdu, because this would be the first time that the awards would be in China. And again, part of the process for deciding locations is supposedly democratic. But again, there was something kind of hinky going on with the voting for the location. So the location for the 2023 awards was down to Chengdu and I believe Winnipeg. And this is from an Esquire piece from Adam Morgan. So this vote took place in 2021 for either Chengdu or Winnipeg. And then there's a quote here. There were concerns that a couple thousand people from China purchased memberships in the World Science Fiction Society, which is that membership group you could purchase and then have voting privileges that year to vote for Chengdu. And this is according to Jason Sanford, who was a 3-time Hugo finalist. Quote, it was unusual, but it was done under the rules. And so part of this is like that sort of China xenophobia, like kind of creeping in. But then also a lot of the time, even whenever there's like online voting for things that involve like Chinese nationalism, they'll spam the votes. They're very good at it. They really are. Like you'll see this a lot of times in like video games and stuff. They're very good at like mobilizing votes for things. So it shouldn't necessarily be surprising that a motivated, essentially fandom group, because this is genre art, got a lot of votes from China.
Sure. Yeah.
The world's most populous nation for starters, right? It's kind of how that operates. But at the same time, apparently votes for Chengdu a lot of them were written in the same handwriting and from the same mailing address. And so people wanted to say that those votes were invalid. And this is just for the location of the awards themselves. This is before, nominations have even taken place.
Right.
And here's another quote from Mary Robinette Cowell. But if you're filling out a ballot in English and you don't speak English, you hand it to a friend who does. And the translation we put in could be read as, where are you from? Not what is your address? So based on that quote, it sounds more like a management's misunderstanding of how these votes would not be counted, but take place for the location. And apparently a few votes were invalidated, but most were allowed to proceed. And this is Cowell again. China has the largest science fiction reading audience on the planet by several magnitudes, and they are extremely passionate. Like, yeah, so that's not surprising. But again, you see this like xenophobia just sort of creep in to the whole thing. It's like, well, if it takes place in China, something weird's going to happen. There's going to be corruption. There's going to be this, you know. So in the absence of answers to why these nominees were disqualified, everybody's just sort of left to wonder, like, well, why were they disqualified? And people go from, well, you know, R.F. Kuang's The Babel is about, you know, fictional history and like this sort of potentially the historical ramifications. China might not like that, so the government might have gotten involved in this and that, you know. She writes about other Chinese culture, like just like trying to find any kind of reasoning why work could have gotten invalidated. Neil Gaiman saying it's like he's like even asking like one of the convention. I don't even know what their title would have been, but let me see if I can pull it up. The director of the Worldcon intellectual property. There you go. He was basically asked him on Facebook of all places, like, well, what was so like offensive about that episode? Was it the fact that the character of Death is played by a black person? Like what could have possibly done it? Mm-hmm. You know, they're just trying to find anything and just getting stonewalled at every possible corner. The fact that Jay Zhao is non-binary and could that have, you know, upset the Chinese government? Something like just truly any kind of answer. But it's all speculation.
Yeah,
all purely speculation
to this day, right? To
this day, yes. So Worldcon said that the Chinese government did not get involved, but the way they worded it was like in an official capacity or something along those lines.
Wow.
And the way they worded it made everybody paranoid that then there was some kind of under the table deal or something like that. Where it's like, oh, well, they didn't get involved officially, but they still got involved. You're
saying it led to even more speculation.
Yes, it did.
Great.
So on the 31st of January, Worldcon then put out a statement that said this Dave McCarty guy, who was basically kind of getting into it with Neil Gaiman on Facebook, he resigned as the director. Kevin Stanley, who was another guy that was kind of just posting publicly, but like on his own forum. It's like, it's so hard to follow, like all of this. Like it really was a lot easier when everybody was on Twitter. And so you could just kind of follow these threads. But now it's like, it's all screwed up. So he was the chair of the Worldcon board of directors. And then Worldcon also like censured a bunch of members, including McCarty and Stanley. And that basically just like, it's just like a verbal punishment, you know, like you did a bad, you know, but like if you're already making them resign, it's like, what does that have? But then after that, there's like, they still didn't say what happened. They still didn't say what happened with these votes, with these disqualifications, with anything. And the way that the Hugo Awards work is that each year is basically put on by a different team of volunteers. And so next year is Glasgow, and it's a different team. It's not the same people in charge, but everybody's going to be skeptical of it no matter what.
Oh, absolutely.
It's tainted now.
Which is such a shame, you know, for everyone who was nominated and everyone who will be nominated in the future.
Right. Yeah, there's just the complete lack of answers is frustrating. I think it's just incredibly frustrating for writers in general who like to write endings to their stories. It's really, you know,
strikes
like
a particular nerve. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no resolution. There's no ending. At least not yet, maybe. But like,
yeah,
it's been a month at least, and there's been nothing. So this McCarty guy, he went on like a I don't know if it was just an interview or it was just released as a podcast or whatever. And he basically said that since he was the director, he could make those decisions. He didn't say what decisions he made. He didn't say why he made them, but that's sort of what it boiled down to. And that, you know, he said that he doesn't know why everybody's still so upset. But it's like, this is still nothing. This is still nothing. Like, how can you be that obtuse? We really didn't think anything, like, and if it really was down to him making the call, like, you just not only invalidated tons of people's votes, you invalidated people's work. Mm-hmm. You like it, and you didn't tell them. You didn't tell them until months afterwards, and you still kind of even didn't.
Yeah, and it's so weird too, because like, you know, they use the wording disqualified, and yet they're not backing that up. So it makes me wonder if they're so set on not giving an actual explanation for this, why did they frame it that way to begin with? Couldn't they easily have just, like, if they're trying to be secretive about it, couldn't they have just said that these artists and these works didn't make the cut?
They could have, but then they released the votes.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's true.
So they would have blown through. But they released the votes, and they didn't doctor them that badly, at least. They just sort of said, yep, invalidated. It's like, why? What was so weird? And then you have other people like poking in. There was lots of like native Chinese work that was nominated, and I can't remember if anything won actually, but like just weird anomalies with those votes apparently. It's like, okay, maybe, but also like this took place in China. So, like, that's that new audience now that's paying attention to this. Mm-hmm. And so then that's the other thing. It's like, if you wanted to appease this, like, new audience to these awards, you've now completely, like, turbo sank anything that might have been gained by having the awards in a new location. So now you've cast doubt on the awards in general, making them seem like this slapdash, corrupt, you know, whatever.
The venue for the awards as well.
The venue for the awards, right? Then you're making invalidating the votes of this new voting block that you could have potentially acquired, like the people that would care about these awards in the future and care about works in the future, or already did care. You know, these were already passionate science fiction fans, but like, this is a new audience that like never had access to this kind of event before. And now it's like, well, you know, whatever, we're just moving on anyway. So it doesn't matter if we sort of fix the vote or whatever the hell happened, put our thumb on the scale at the very least for whatever reason. It just, nobody wins here. Nobody wins. It doesn't make any sense.
It's true.
It puts some potential, like, way to appease the Chinese government beforehand when they didn't even necessarily ask for any sort of like cultural changes to be made to this event, you know? Like, it's all just bizarre. I don't know. And like, yeah, it's just no answers, just none. And this guy, like, he resigned, but he gets this just sort of, yeah, I don't see what the problem is, you know, see ya, bye.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like we're getting answers.
I don't think so.
At this point.
I don't think so. God have mercy on the Glasgow people, because how do you pull up from that nosedive?
Right, because you can look at it as, oh, it's a new team, it's a fresh year and a fresh start, but most people are not going to be thinking that way. They're going to just look at this, what happened here, and be skeptical, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So you're kind of doomed from the beginning there.
Pretty much.
Unless the new team were to take all those works that were disqualified and put them back in the running for next year.
So that's what some people have suggested, is that those works should get another year of eligibility.
I mean, off the top of my head, that's the only way that seems like it would be, well, fair for one, and also get some goodwill back in their direction.
Right. But then it's like that really just does completely, well, maybe not completely, but like really just fucking invalidates
Yeah,
the Chengdu Awards.
It does. It invalidates last year's, and it is an unfair circumstance for all the upcoming titles that would be having to then compete with works that weren't even released in that year, you know, in addition to everything that does come out in 2024. Right. So, it's not a perfect solution, but it's the only one that I can just right now think of.
Right. But yeah, but that has, like, in the public, that has been an idea that's been circulated a lot. Is
I would imagine
an extra year of eligibility.
I don't have an original thought in my head, so
no, like it's a rational idea.
Yeah,
you know, but yeah, I would love to have a resolution and a way to end this segment, but I don't. So
yeah, it's just gonna feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it just sort of hangs. Here. Let's talk about my bullshit.
Mountains of Madness.
Cool. So, I frequently lose my mind.
Sometimes on air, sometimes off air.
Sometimes on air. Yeah. No, this was definitely an off air sort of mind break situation. I attempted to put some foam in my keyboard, and it did not go well. It didn't go well, and it basically took up my entire weekend last weekend.
Foam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a keyboard, and over the
not
holidays,
like a piano, just like a computer keyboard.
No.
Okay.
Like computer typing.
All
yeah.
right.
So I had a keyboard. I had a very functional keyboard. I should put that up front. I had a very functional keyboard.
Just like a QWERTY.
Yeah. You know. Yeah.
Just the standard.
Yeah. It's a 65% keyboard, and but I got some new switches over the holidays.
Wait, what does 65% mean?
So that refers to the size. So like it doesn't have the numpad, and it doesn't have a function row. So it's basically just the letters and the arrow keys.
Oh, and I'm assuming at the time it also didn't have foam.
It did not have foam.
Okay.
It did not have foam. Yeah, so I got some new switches over the holidays, and so I was going to put in the new switches, and then I was also going to replace the stabilizers in the keyboard. And so I kind of already did that, but I needed to redo it because my shift key was sticking and my backspace key was sticking a little bit.
You're like a useless mechanic.
A little bit.
Just like taking any skill and putting it in the completely wrong thing.
Yeah. And so I needed to do that. And then I was also looking, I was like, well, what, I was looking up different mods and stuff that I could do to the keyboard. And then everywhere I was looking, it was like, well, you got to get this foam. And not only do you have to get the foam, you got to get the foam from this one guy who sells this foam, because he sells it already pre-cut for the keyboard.
Now this is funny. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is funny because this is not the first time that you've made a tech purchase that is sold by this one guy. Not this specific one guy, but just one guy on the internet. Because wasn't there a cable that you needed like last year? And it was just this person who like makes the cables.
That was more than a cable, but yes.
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was. I don't mean to reduce it, but
yeah. No, that's the guy that makes the KVMs. Yeah.
Of course. How could I forget?
Yeah. Yeah. So like, otherwise, if you don't get pre-cut foam, you have to cut your own foam. So you have to get like a big sheet on Amazon or wherever, Home Depot, and you have to cut out each individual key and then also cut out for each individual switch. And I my hands shake, and I'm not really good at like cutting with scissors, especially when it's that small. So I was like, okay, great. This is for my exact keyboard. I'll buy it.
What's the purpose of it though?
To make the keyboard sound better.
Oh, it's an auditory thing.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't make you type faster. It doesn't like reduce friction. It doesn't.
No.
Okay. Does it take away the typing noise? Does it make it silent?
No, it makes it sound deeper.
Are you like, I feel like this is the equivalent of like putting on like changing the muffler on your car.
It's a little closer to like, like in old, I guess old movies or whatever, when a kid would stick a bicycle or a baseball card in his bicycle to make it make the noise.
Yes.
That's kind of what this is like. but like you're just kind of chasing after the noise. And so you keep doing shit. That's what this is.
Okay.
Yeah. So I order the foam. I wait a week for the foam to arrive. I worry that the post office loses the foam because they said that it's all of a sudden coming late and then the tracking stops working. And I'm like, well, shit. I'm going to have to get a refund on this foam. The foam's not going to show up. Foam shows up and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to put in this foam because the install looks real easy. It looks real easy because you just got to put it in and then it fits. And so I put it in, but then I can't get my switches back in. They don't fit anymore. And then I realized that they're bending when I'm putting them in. Like the holes don't line up anymore. I'm like, well, this fucking sucks. Like this sucks. And I look and then the keyboard isn't closed all the way. And I'm like, well, I guess I didn't screw it in all the way. You know, like I really got to tighten this down. I'm like, nope, these screws are going as tight as they'll possibly go. I can't really, clamp this down anymore. It won't go. And so then I try to put it together with only the one piece of foam because it was a 2-piece set, 2 pieces of foam. And so then I just try with the 1 piece and it's doing the same thing. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. There's less material in there now. How would it not go back together?
And I'm assuming this one guy doesn't really have customer service support.
We're not even there yet.
Okay.
But I'll be honest with you. I didn't even try. I just sort of gave up.
Yeah.
But, so then I'm like, okay, well, this is a bust. Or like at that point I didn't have a keyboard and I needed to use my computer. So I'm like, well, fuck the foam then. Let me just put my keyboard back together. And so then I go to put it back together, sans foam, and it won't go back together the right way anymore.
There's a parable in here. There's like a very there's a real learning experience to be had, I think.
That's why in the show notes I called myself Icarus.
Yeah, I didn't catch that, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the keyboard is now bent somehow.
Permanently.
As far as I can tell, it's just bent in the slightest way. And what that means is that whenever I put the switches back in their spots, they don't touch the circuit board, which means the keys won't work. And they're also just ever so slightly misaligned. When I put them in anyway, they bend the pins, which basically breaks the switches unless I'm able to pull them like back together so they're straight, which is just like bending a piece of metal. And so I'm like, well, this fucking sucks. I just broke this keyboard and I just couldn't get it back together. I'm like, well, let's see if my dad can do something. He's always fucking around with PCBs. He doesn't understand what I did. He doesn't understand how it can't be bent back together, but he's like, yeah, no, it can't. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, well, you did it. I'm like, yeah, I know I did it. And then when I tried again with the foam, I tried it again without the foam, nothing. And then I'm like basically breaking these switches until they have no pins left. I should mention that the switches I got, so they're 5-pin switches, but the keyboard only supports 3-pin switches. And so what I had to do is take off the 2 extra pins, which are basically little plastic nubs. And so I had to take an X-Acto knife and cut off these 2 extra plastic pins. I had to do that on 75 switches. That worked out fine, but that was before I did the foam shit. So I ruined all of that work because of the foam. And so I broke the keyboard, is the long and short of it.
So you need a replacement keyboard?
Yeah, I had to buy a replacement keyboard. So then I had to use like the Best Buy credit that I had, and I bought a different keyboard because it was the only one that Best Buy had, because Best Buy doesn't really sell like moddable keyboards. They only sell like gamery keyboards, you know?
Mm-hmm. I doubt those have any foam, but I think you're beyond foam at this point.
Yeah, so I have this keyboard. It's quite nice. I do like it. I had to order some more switches because I broke a lot of the other ones, but now I have extra switches. The problem is that I think I could really use some foam. And I keep thinking, I'm like, well, this keyboard, so this new keyboard is a 75%.
It has more space, but I'm sorry, but it's wild to me that you're thinking this way because you have not even experienced the foam.
I know.
You never got to a point. It's not like you had the foam and you were reaping the benefits of the foam and now you can't go back. You never had, if the foam was nothing but harmful to you.
I don't necessarily blame the foam is the thing. I blame the keyboard, because how could the craziest thing, it's like House of Leaves. Like, it all fits perfectly. The foam fit perfectly in the keyboard, but then whenever it's together, it just like didn't. It's like inexplicable.
This is definitely the segment where you make the House of Leaves comparison.
And so this new one has space. And so like the manufacturer of this new keyboard, they sell foam. And so I'm like, well, what if I get their foam that comes from them, not some guy? Even though for this keyboard, I keep seeing everybody recommend that guy's foam for this different keyboard.
Oh, no. So are you trying it again with a different keyboard?
I'm considering it.
You're considering it, yeah.
I'm considering it. The only problem is that, so I also have a problem with this keyboard. I didn't realize uses different stabilizers. So the other keyboard used clip-ins. This one uses screw-ins.
Yeah,
so
you keep bringing up stabilizers. I have no idea what that could even be.
So you ever use a space bar and it's like kind of rattly?
I can't say I have.
Okay. Well, my space bar is a little rattly and it bugs me. And so if I replace the stabilizer and put some grease on it, it fixes that. I've done that. That worked. That worked. But it was on the other keyboard.
You greased up the space bar.
Yeah, it worked.
So all of your keyboard problems are like auditory.
Well, the rattling is both auditory and feel.
Okay.
Because you could feel the rattle, you know. But so the way that this keyboard works is, since they're screw-ins, I have to take apart the whole thing anyway to replace the stabilizers. And so I figured while I'm in there,
while you're there, you might as well put the foam. Try the foam.
Might as well put the foam in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
So has the foam, is it in transit? Has it been ordered?
I haven't ordered it yet.
Okay. You know what my recommendation is going to be.
You're going to tell me not to get the foam.
I'm actually going to tell you to get the foam because I want to come back next episode and hear what happened.
Yeah.
No, but common sense would say just leave it and have a functional keyboard. Because there's really no guarantee that the end result will be any different than the first time around.
Yeah. It's just driving me nuts because everything else feels great except for the space bar.
And, you know, you use it so often. I mean, for as many words as you type, you are using that space bar.
Yeah. Like, I really got to get in there with the grease.
Yeah.
But now I got to buy these new stabilizers is the problem. So now the stabilizers that I bought are just useless.
Because they're for the previous keyboard? Yeah.
So if anybody wants a bent drop alt 65% low profile keyboard, you know the email. Take it off my hands.
Is it coming in at a discount? Like, how much are you?
Oh, I'll take anything for it.
Okay.
I'll take anything for it. I'll throw in some switches. I got
Nintendo?
Some extra. I got some Boba U4Ts.
Did you just say Boba Tea?
Boba U4T switches. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then I also have some Kale box whites. Those are what that keyboard came with. So
it's a whole different language here.
We're doing just fine. Oh, we're doing just fine. You know who's not going to be doing fine is the AI. Let's talk a little bit about that. Cool. So do you remember how last time was super fucking depressing?
Mm-hmm.
It was maybe even more depressing in the edit, I found. So
just condensed misery. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I apologize for that listening experience. I guess I thought it would be more interesting than depressing, but it was pretty dark. It's pretty dark. But there's some good news. We can fight against AI art now and how it steals against actual artists. So from the University of Chicago, there is a little program called Nightshade. And
good name.
Yeah. What this does is it basically poisons the AI art generators. And it does that by so if you have any art that you want essentially not just watermarked, I guess it's not technically watermark, but if you are an artist and you want your art to post your art online and you don't want it to be scraped by AI, or if you just see it being scraped by AI as an inevitability, you could pass it through Nightshade, and this is a program you download. It doesn't go to the cloud or anything like that. And what this does is it changes the arrangement of the pixels, like at the pixel level, and basically makes it impossible for the AI algorithms to identify objects in the art.
Sounds like almost like a weird way of like encrypting the artwork.
Kind of, yeah. And so then it sort of becomes useless for it. And so it'll tell it that it's like stuff that's completely unrelated to what the art actually is. And like part of the step whenever you pass it through Nightshade is you tell it generally like what your art is of, so that Nightshade knows, and so that it'll know like how to scramble its pixels. And to the human eye, you're not supposed to really notice a difference. I did it. I did it once just to see. So I passed through the did it all for the Moogle art.
I was going to say,
yeah,
it's perfect example to use. Yeah.
Yeah. So me personally, I could tell, but I was also like really zooming in and trying to find the differences. But again, like if you're just trying to like sort of watermark it and put it up for showcase online, then it's fine. Right. And I just did that very quickly on my MacBook Air, and it took like 15 minutes, like unplugged, and I have it on like power saver. So I imagine if you have like a higher end like art computer, or, you know, you plug it in like and have it on, you know, higher power settings, then it won't take that long. But they're also like improving it as well. And it also has a Windows version, but I was just screwing around like in bed and just decided to, you know, see what it would do. But yeah, so like Windows or Apple Silicon, you can check out the Nightshade from University of Chicago. They also have a something called the glaze protection. I'm not exactly sure what that does because I did not screw around with that one. But I think that's supposed to be also some kind of more like watermarking like protection. But this is more like offensive like weaponry to actually like fuck up the algorithm, which I am personally a fan of.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. And then something that I did to, this is less art focused, but something that I did for my website itself. And I wish I would have known about this much sooner. And I actually don't know how effective this is. Like something like this, where it's like actually like the methodology is explained, like what they're doing. So the same way that like search engines have crawlers, and that's where they find websites, and generally you sort of want that to happen to make your website be discoverable, and, you know, search engine optimization and all that kind of shit. The AI algorithms are using a similar thing now to scour the internet and just jack your shit. And so if you like own a website, you know, or just a blog or whatever, and you can access your robots.txt file, what you can do is go in there and basically tell it to block all requests from GPT. And it's a quick search to do the like specific strings that you need. It's like not very long. You just like copy and paste it. But if you want to find the specific ones, where was that website? I wasn't planning on talking about this, but that's why I don't have it ready. Because I found this from Clark's World, the science fiction magazine, because we talked at some point last year about how they were getting inundated with submissions from AI writers, essentially, just using like just trying to shit out AI stories, and they had to close down submissions for a time. And so up on their blog, which I'll just put in the description of this episode because it's very handy. Just the strings that you need to put into your robots.txt file on your website to block these different, like even Facebook's AI and TikTok's AI, which is just sort of also just crawling the web currently and just stealing shit, just sort of kind of unannounced and without asking. We don't really know how effective these are, but it's sort of better than nothing.
Can I interject with something?
Sure.
Clark's World magazine.
Yeah.
4-time Hugo Award winner.
Not surprising. Yeah.
just thought I'd bring that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has been a lot of a doom and gloom AI, especially from me. But we could take the fight to them.
No, it's very cool. It's really fascinating how these methods of combating this come up and where it'll lead. I'm not sure. I mean, it's such like an overwhelmingly it's such a large problem when it comes to art on the internet.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So now this image of what is it? It's Fred Durst. No, it's a Moogle dressed up as Fred Durst. Is that what it is?
That's correct. Yeah.
And this is now protected from being stolen by AI.
It is, yeah, and Fred Durst Moogle is actively poisoning AI. Yeah.
That's good. It doesn't solve all the world's problems, but it is something.
No. Should we have some fun?
Were we not?
Should we do some
already?
I don't know. I never know. I'm having fun, but I never know if anybody else is. So let's do a little worst beats.
Damn, son, where'd you find this? Holy shit, this is my garbage. Yeah. But I can't stop listening. Yeah. This song is a war crime. If you're listening to this song, you are shadow cursed for eternity. Have severe depression. You're in the right place for shitty music.
I always forget how long it is. Every damn time. So you watched the Grammys for some reason?
I don't know exactly when this started. I think it was around the beginning of COVID. I just made it a habit of watching the Grammy Awards. I've been doing it for a number of years now. I do enjoy the performances, and it's the reason I tune in. I really don't care very much about the awards themselves, although, there is a lot to say about the awards themselves, but it's just not the reason I tune in.
Sure.
But yeah, this year's Grammy Awards were a step up, at least in my eyes, from what we usually get. The headlines, of course, revolve around Taylor Swift.
Did they?
They did, as they always do. And it's unfortunate, I think, because it takes away from a lot of really special moments and things that happened this year.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's Taylor Swift winning Album of the Year again, actually being now her fourth time, and makes her the winningest artist of all time in that category, which is the top category. That's their best picture. That's their end of the night award. And so she has now won more of those than anyone else in Grammy's history, which, interpret that how you will.
Yeah.
And then it's
I
go ahead.
have to say, I think it's funny that how dour you are about that now.
It's wild. I don't think I've ever
about 6 months ago you would have been maybe gloating about it.
I've turned. I don't know if I've ever turned on a celebrity as quickly as I have here. At least one who hasn't.
Don't get me wrong. I am all for it, but.
That's excluding the ones who are, are sexual offenders and shit. Yeah, when stuff comes out, that's different. But no, her behavior has been atrocious lately. And so whenever I do want to grasp onto what I did like about Taylor Swift, she just makes it very difficult. I mean, as we record this today, she's under fire because she's suing a college kid who runs a social media account taking public information about flight paths and
she's doing the Elon thing.
She's exactly doing the Elon thing. She's following right in his footsteps. Yeah,
that's great.
She's going on to the Grammys. She's announcing a new album in the middle of the show and completely taking the news headlines and the spotlight away from everybody else. Mm-hmm. It's rough. It's rough in the Swiftie realm. Sure. The thing I struggle with the most is the tragedy in Brazil when a fan died at her show, and she was very quickly doing photo opportunities with the fan's family and then posting on Instagram about how incredible that leg of the tour was.
It's a little I don't know if I said this when we talked about it previously, but that meme of the TV flash where he's taking the selfie in front of the grave on set?
Yeah, and it's not as innocent as Justin Bieber at the Anne Frank Memorial, you know?
Sure.
That's coming from a good place, I think.
Yeah?
I think so. I think it was just, you know, he was young.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so that, you know, that took up a lot of the discourse, but honestly, there were two things that happened at the Grammys that just like blew me away. And the first one was Joni Mitchell performing for the very first time at the Grammys.
I was gonna say, I'm sure she's performed before.
Yes, but never at the Grammys. Never. I took an unfortunate pause there. Just transcendent, really. For someone who's such a legend and has had such an impact on the industry that this award show celebrates, or, you know, at least tries to claim that it celebrates. And, you know, where she is in her career, she's 80 years old. She's been through major health obstacles. And just to have a moment like this was incredible. She performed both sides now, which I think lyrically is one of the greatest songs ever written. And it's one that just takes on more significance as like time goes along. Like it's incredible. So there was that. And then the other thing that really stood out to me was Tracy Chapman performing Fast Car.
Yeah.
With
that penetrated my sort of sphere.
I figured it would. I thought it would. And this came about, I think, in part because Luke Combs, this country artist, did a cover of it that a lot of people really loved. And it was, you know, got a lot of radio play and stuff in the past year. So, you know, having her come and perform that with him turned into this like really, really wonderful and moving performance because, you know, he is so visibly like in awe of her and like worships her as an artist. And you could tell that he just felt so happy to be sharing the stage with her. And then, you know, she hadn't performed this live, I believe, in quite a long time, especially on such a stage. So that was really special too. And then you had like a very lengthy but really moving in memorial where you had Stevie Wonder pay tribute to Tony Bennett, and you had a Sinead O'Connor tribute that was really wonderful. So like for me this year, the Grammys were like the power of it came from like saluting the older artists that have been around for a very long time and maybe haven't fully gotten their due, at least in this sphere. And it just worked really well. And to me those are the real takeaways. It's not the Taylor Swift's
right.
machine.
Right.
So do you happen to know which artist won the most Grammy Awards on Sunday? If you had to take a guess. No, I don't mean most nominated because SZA was the most nominated. And rightfully so. I think she was snubbed for Album of the Year, the one that Taylor picked up. But that's you know, a whole different thing. But who won the most, if you had to guess?
If it's not Taylor Swift, it has to be like a producer or something.
It is Phoebe Bridgers.
Really?
Yeah, so she won 3 awards with Boy Genius, and she won a 4th award, which put her over the edge because 4 was the highest for any single person. Her 4th award was with SZA because she featured on a song that had won an award. So I thought that was really cool. I was a little scared for Phoebe because she was in the audience, and there was so SZA was performing Kill Bill, and they did like a whole like stunt choreography thing where this woman just jumps up on a table and pulls out a sword and starts doing all these crazy moves. And you know, I'm sure it's a fake sword, but we're talking inches away from Phoebe's face.
Really?
Inches. I wonder how that, like, what the notice was there. I'm sure everyone had to have been aware that this was going to happen.
You got to.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Especially after the whole, what's his face at the Oscars?
Will Smith?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Will Smith.
Oh, God.
Well, no, I just, there was really one of the, probably, or I would say the most unfortunate thing that happened was with Killer Mike, the rapper who won, I think, 3 Grammys on Sunday. He won 3 Grammys. One of them was Rap Album of the Year. So he basically had a career night in terms of like this award show, and just a really significant impact on, you know, the music world and the Grammys this year. He was taken away in handcuffs before the broadcast even started and arrested.
Like actually?
Like actually. And, you know, because the news reports came out, I think this was around like 8 o'clock. So right, you know, around when the show was starting. He'd won the awards in the pre-show, which that's a whole thing. And Jay-Z had touched upon that in his sort of scathing.
Wait, best rap albums in the pre-show?
Yes, it was.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
some like Game Awards kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, which I really appreciated Jay-Z using his platform to just go off on the Grammys and the Academy for a variety of reasons. But so we later learned that it was some sort of misdemeanor. There was some sort of altercation with like a security person.
At the awards?
Either going into or at the venue. And so, but my understanding is also that nobody was like injured and it wasn't really a significant thing. And so it's just wild to me that this night was like taken away from him.
Yeah. So like, was somebody actually pressing charges or like what was the...
I don't have I wish I had the full details. I think they might not even be fully available because as of Sunday night, nobody knew why this happened. And it, you know, I bring up Will Smith because like, you know, this is just, it's the only other real prominent award show incident that I can think of, but Will Smith assaulted a dude on live TV and then just was able to sit down front row and enjoy the rest of the show. And even make an acceptance speech, later that night.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, he did. I think he won like best actor or something. Or no, not even. It was like it was like a lifetime achievement award or something, if I remember
Jesus
right.
God.
But the point is, like, how does this is not okay, because by all accounts, whatever happened with this artist, not nearly to, you know, that significant.
Yeah, a misdemeanor, like, yeah,
exactly. To be taken away in handcuffs at a award show is just, I feel like people, maybe I'm not in the right places online, but I feel like there isn't enough outrage about that.
Well, I mean, I had no idea it even happened, so I don't know.
Yeah. See, I just feel like there should be more outrage about that. Because they took away his, like, a very, very significant night in his career. And he's someone who's very politically charged and, you know, he's complicated politically. So, you know, that's a whole thing. It's honestly neither here nor there. The point was, if anyone could have used the Grammy platform for something interesting, it probably would have been him. But instead, he's, I guess, spending the night in a local jail.
For misdemeanor, I doubt it.
Oh, so probably released.
Yeah.
Even so, he was removed from the venue, from the award show that he actually, so he would have, he's right up there with the artist who won the most awards last night. I mean, he's, you know, I don't know. I think it's wild. I think it's actually unacceptable. But
yeah, that's pretty crazy. You know who is doing a lot with their platform?
Who?
That's our boy, Miles.
You know, what a week for music. Like, you have Joni Mitchell's first ever Grammy performance. And in the same week, you have Miles' first ever late night performance. Not performance, but well,
yeah.
Okay.
So our boy, you know him, you love him. We've been talking about this guy for a long time now. He made his way onto the Tonight Show with James Fallon. Sort of. I sent this to you. Well, I told you about it. I genuinely thought this was fake, and it's still kind of hard to believe it's real. But this is from the Miles YouTube channel.
Yeah. Oh my God. Audience members.
This one is my jam, dude. You're going to freak out. You were going to freak out. This is the jam. Okay. This is a rapper called, Miles? Oh, you know Miles. Let's take a listen to a song that he wrote. It's called Payday. This is a goodie.
I get paid every day of the week. Why does they hate on me? All I need is 6 hot wings. And don't you dare forget the calamari. No Justin Bieber, but I'm sorry. They say they can't high, but they not high as Bob Marley. All I really need is 6 hot. Looking at my watch.
Stop. I'm a lot better than butter. Then about mama said a little don't know it's kind of fantastic.
So that's basically it.
It's fun when the late night team picks up on like a social media thing that happened like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Because that's a classic. That's classic, you know. That's like one of his staples. That's one of the I think the tracks that really catapulted him. But we're talking like 2022. I feel
right. Well, I don't think Jimmy Fallon was going to play Four Wheeler.
True. Yeah. There
on
you
NBC.
you are restricted in that way.
Yeah. But I just hate how he's literally like slamming his head on the desk in like fake laughter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay,
I know.
come on. Like you heard this in pre-production. Like, come on, you know?
It's like someone on their writing team just like found him on TikTok or discovered him on TikTok.
Right.
And now he's got to like play along with us.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but
Right.
Jimmy Fallon is not appreciating.
No,
the
that's what
brilliance
bugs
here.
me about it. No. And I'm not saying that we're like ahead of the curve or like we discovered him, right? Because
Well, we were on the curve.
Stratosphere. We were on the curve. But he's like in a stratosphere, you know?
Yeah.
Like to me, he is so far like past Jimmy Fallon, you know?
Absolutely.
And yeah, like you said, like Jimmy Fallon doesn't actually get it.
No, he doesn't. This is treated like America's Funniest Home Videos or something.
Yeah.
This is treated like a throwaway. Look what we found on TikTok, and is so much more than that.
Right. Like the prop department had to make a fake, Miles like vinyl sleeve because I know he doesn't have vinyl records. I know he's not producing those and selling those. Like come on. Like he's holding it up the same way he held up that fucking ape NFT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like come on. It's just so artificial.
But you know what? If this leads to more people discovering, then it's ultimately for the better.
It is. And, I wasn't even going to bring it up. I sent it to, I told you about it because I was like, I can't believe this is kind of real. But then as we were getting ready for the show today, I was on YouTube again. But then something else dropped.
Mark Boom, they miss you.
Shout out Jimmy Fallon, tell him I said thank you. Hey, tell Jimmy Fallon I said thank you. Go tell Jimmy Fallon Skechers. Go tell Jimmy Fallon SpaghettiOs. Go tell Jimmy Fallon I said thank you. Go tell Jimmy Fallon I said thank you. Go tell Jimmy Fallon Brick Wall. Go tell Jimmy Fallon, Miles hit baked beans, working beans. I just called Jimmy Fallon and said salad dressing. I just called Jimmy Fallon and said brick onions. Just called Jimmy Fallon, he said smack your grandma. Hey, I'm about to change my name to Fallon Jimmy. Hey, I should change my name to Fallon Jimmy on purpose, dog. Shout out Jimmy Fallon, tell him I said thank you. Hey, tell Jimmy Fallon I said thank you. Go tell Jimmy Fallon Skechers. Go tell Jimmy Fallon SpaghettiOs. Go tell Jimmy Fallon I said thank you. Go tell Jimmy Fallon I said thank you. Hey, just shout out Jimmy Fallon. Right after this, I'm about to go on the smacking spree. I'm smacking my mama, my dad, my grandma, my uncle, my great uncle, my great niece, my youngest niece, my oldest uncle, my youngest uncle. I'm smacking all of them. Shout out Jimmy Fallon for this. I'm going on a smacking spree. Hey, let me get an order of that the pepper jack chicken. Wait, you eat pepper jack chicken? Yeah, I eat pepper jack chicken. Yeah, I eat that pepper jack chicken. Oh, yeah, I eat pepper jack chicken. Do you? Yeah, I eat pepper jack chicken. Do you? Yeah, I eat that pepper jack chicken. Do you? Yeah, I eat that pepper jack chicken. Do you? Oh, my bad. I'm in the zone, bro. I'm tripping, bro. Hey, get me out of here, dog.
That beat's smooth.
It's so good. Also, like more smacking of family members than on that family diss track, which, I mean, that's impressive.
He's on a smacking spree. He said, tell Jimmy Fallon I'm on the smacking spree.
It is a smacking
It's because of Jimmy Fallon he's on the smacking spree. Yeah, like I said, he's in a level so far beyond Jimmy Fallon's comprehension.
Like, this turnaround time puts South Park to shame.
Yeah.
You know, like it's incredible writing. I mean,
yeah, this is literally YouTube says 2 hours ago. This is hot off the press. Oh man.
Yeah, that's great. Just a wonderful week for music, you know? I mean, just like all the things are happening.
Oh man. I think that was a show.
Well, no. Do you think has a Best New Artist nomination coming in the near future, like with the Grammys?
Well, now that he's got that sort of old media sort of cachet.
Right? That's kind of what I'm thinking. Building up the prestige.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I think that's a show.
I think it's a show. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Really do appreciate it. Make sure you check out first episode of Did It All for the Moogle. It's wherever you get your podcasts. And also the Dead End Road YouTube channel. Current schedule is to have at least one a month. But that is the tricky thing about devoting a podcast to a subject that takes at least 30 hours. And on a good day, maybe 100 hours. Next episode will be basically nothing but Persona 3. I shouldn't say basically. It's going to be Persona 3. Because currently I have 4 pages of single-spaced notes. And I've played the game for 8 hours. So you could sort of extrapolate there. I'll probably play for 100 hours.
So you're looking at 50 pages.
Yeah, if that trend continues, I need help. Yeah, that's what that is.
Oh, this entire podcast is a cry for help at this point. Fucking foam.
Check out DeadEndRoad.media. You can find all the shows there. Also the bookstore blogs and some fiction I'm posting up on there. You can subscribe and get notified when literally any of that goes live. Also up on the site, I put up my rates for developmental copy editing and other publishing services, and also some details about those services. So you could email me at publishing@deadendroad.co and we could talk about it. Let's see. You got anything to plug? I never ask you.
It's a good question. Maybe I'll start coming prepared with something.
Yeah. I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I want to plug YouTube Music.
Yeah.
Which I just got a trial for because I want to listen to more Joni Mitchell. And she is still standing firm on the Spotify ban after Joe Rogan.
Okay.
Which I respect.
Respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I might just end up buying her music and just having it.
Sure.
Because I think that makes the most sense.
I'm surprised with that new iPhone you didn't try out Apple.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm quite happy with the Apple Music as an Android user, which is crazy.
That is interesting.
It's something.
I don't actually want to plug YouTube Music. It's kind of a bullshit service.
Yeah.
I did like Trevor Noah's joke at in the opening monologue about did he say TikTok is screwing over artists?
Oh, I have no idea.
So he's like, yeah, TikTok, you shouldn't be screwing over artists. That's Spotify's job,
Okay, yeah, sure.
So
yeah.
I thought you were going to have that whole universal TikTok thing as part of the show this week.
No. Yeah, because, I had an inkling maybe you did, but no, it didn't happen. But see, they're getting their comeuppance because I've been talking about that for a long time. How could all this music just be there? See, I was right.
It's true. Although I'm pretty sure that because there's too much money at stake where they're gonna resolve that.
We'll see.
You don't think so?
I think that that UMG is gonna do what these record labels do, and they're gonna want too much money.
Mm-hmm.
And TikTok, in their quest for infinite growth, will say no because that will save us money, and that we are the product, not the music.
Yeah, and their quest
and
for
they're gonna be wrong.
Oh yeah,
because people love putting the music over top of their TikToks.
Do you know
I see
how
from the copyright claims I've gotten?
Yeah, do you know how many silent TikTok videos there are now on the platform?
Right.
It is astonishing.
Uh-huh.
Taylor Swift alone.
Sure.
Like if it was just Taylor Swift, which I mean it basically is.
Right.
Just staggering. But no, I think TikTok's quest for infinite growth, as you say, is already the main cause of the app deteriorating in quality with the TikTok shop. It's very it's rampant and it's not good.
Oh yeah, because this is what happens. They got the user base and now they can just sort of tighten the screws.
It's a damn shame because early COVID, I loved that platform so much because I was just finding, people with like interesting stories and perspectives and, just people on there just because it's a thing to do in quarantine. And it felt very like raw and just like personal. And now this, now it's losing that more and more by the day. But
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
There we go. We talked about it.
We did.
All right. Yeah, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Check out Did It All for the Moogle. Check out the website. Yep, that's it. All right. Bye.